Do you? All right, we're gonna call this meeting to order. Number 2, consider approval of the minutes for the May 9th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and take any action necessary. Hear a motion to accept the meeting for May 9th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, number 3, Z-2023-04. Hold a public hearing to discuss and consider a request from John Anderson on behalf of Creative Destination Development LLC, ATC Jam Partners LLC, MCGDE ATC LLC, in the city of Mount Pleasant for the approval of zoning change from general retail district and commercial district and future development district to PD-2 Plan Development District Number 2 for single-family, multifamily, and commercial district land uses and establishing PD development regulations totaling 110.654 acres for the subject property identified as being 100.714 acre tract of land located in the Reese Property Porter Survey Abstract 441, Titus County, Texas, and the James R. Mitchell Survey Abstract number 384, Titus County, Texas, and the John Thompson Survey Abstract number 566, Titus County, Texas, of Mount Pleasant, Titus County, Texas, and being a 9.940 acre tract of land located in the Reese Porter Survey Abstract number 441, Titus County, Texas, and generally located at the northwest quadrant of the intersection of Tankersley Road and West Ferguson Road, Highway 271, and at the northwest corner of the intersection of West Ferguson Road, Highway 271, and FM 1734, and take any action necessary.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. And we have Mr. John Anderson here this evening making a request to rezone the property that you see here, this location map, and for establishing a mixed-use development on this property. This total is 110 acres, 110.654 acres, and essentially what you're looking at here, it's on the northwest quadrant of Tankersley Drive and Highway 271 or West Ferguson Road. You've got 100.7 acres here, and you got a 9.9 acre tract here as well, so that incorporates the entire development. What we're looking at, as far as from a zoning perspective, currently the property is zoned commercial district. You've got general retail in this area as well, and this is a future development area, essentially some of the portion here and then the city portion that's right here. Tankersley Lake is here. Unincorporated area is located here. So this is outside of the city limits, as well as a portion down here that's outside the city limits. And so essentially when we take a look at this from a zoning perspective is how did this match up with the current surrounding of properties? And so when we take a look as far as like compatibility of uses that are surrounding, you have general retail and commercial in this area. So what they're asking for with this being a mixed-use development goes along the lines with our comprehensive plan in that it's a mixed-use development for that. If we take a look at their essentially their concept plan and how they want to lay out the property, once again, what the applicant is intending to do is to create a mixed use, and essentially what that means is you have a mix of residential, single-family residential here. You're going to have some townhome products that are located right adjacent to the patio homes. You got a small section of patio homes here as well too, but also you're looking at probably at about 1,200 apartment units, and those are going to be located in these two areas right up here, as well as this north tract, 9-acre tract here. You may see a mix of commercial with those, but essentially overall from a residential development standpoint, you've got probably about 14, maybe 1,500 residential units coming in, 1,200 of those being apartment units. Essentially, and additionally, when you take a look at this, you have some open space areas here, some opportunities for some amenities, some trail systems that you can see that they have here as an amenity. that's tied in with the city park. So there's opportunities here, as well as a marina. Looks like the trail that you're seeing that meanders through here is covering the marina, but there is a marina here, has some boat docks, and the idea is to have some restaurants there as well that'll have water view ability there. So, but also there is an area that you'll see later in the concept drawing, an area for folks to be able to just relax and enjoy the outdoor. It's a gathering space essentially, and that's good for a pedestrian development, and that's exactly what this is. Commercial-wise, you have a couple of large tracts here, number 8 and number 18. That's probably going to be more along the lines of a national retailer, possibly something that's going to have a regional draw to the area, so you'll probably have a larger facilities right here, as well as some smaller commercial. Those opportunities essentially are obviously retail. You're looking at restaurant, hotels possibly as well, and some other office uses, things like that. And so with the combined residential aspect of this, and with the retail portion of that as well, it makes for a compatibility of uses here for this mixed use center, and what we call a planned development district. It's a master plan development essentially. And so what's in your packet this evening is a draft ordinance that will go to City Council next week, which you'll make a recommendation on this evening. But in that packet is the regulations for the planned development, and essentially what that means. And I summarized some of that in your packet, and these are key elements that go along with the development of the project. And essentially what you're looking at when you take a look at this is general development standards. You know, how are the buildings going to look? How are they going to be set back? You know, what are their design elements associated with that? So all these things are listed in there, as well as the sub-area map, which is what we just took a look at here. The land uses, what's allowed by right. The thing about a planned development district, it establishes specific land uses that are allowed by right. It's not just general zoning where if you have a commercial district, you can have anything that's in commercial. These are specific standards that they have outlined that the developer, that Mr. Anderson, wants to see in his development as specific type of uses within this that are compatible with the residential. And so that's how you want to set up and design your planned development. You're going to have architectural standards. So in a sense, the city has standards already. We have minimum standards. What this is doing on the plan development side of it, it is actually increasing those standards. And within the standards here, you do have, it's going to have design elements. It's going to take a look at your roofs, your architectural elements. Are there going to be anything else in there? It has masonry requirements. So you're going to see, as this develops, quality development that's going to be associated with every building that's associated with this development. Lighting, parking, obviously we need to have good lighting. This is going to be a pedestrian area. You want it well lit, as well as signage. That way you can find the location. There's essentially let me go back. Sorry about that. 2 primary entrances here along Anderson Parkway. And so in these you have opportunity for design elements within that, where you can have landscaping for those entries. You're going to have signage as well as additional lighting. As far as access, there are probably 7, I counted 7 points of access here, but these are the 2 primary ones that you're going to see here. You got Mattingly Way here as well that leads over into the restaurants also. So from a design standpoint, this is once again what you're taking a look at. Street standards, impact park fees, should those be adopted, then we'll probably see something like that as well too. Administration, the one thing about this PD is that within the PD, how it's built is, since this is an ordinance that is taking a look at the design of this, this goes beyond staff level to be able to have approval. So approval of any site plan is going to come before this board. You'll take a look at site plan, you'll take a look at the landscaping, the lighting plan, as well as the elevations. And so once staff has a review of this, we'll bring this before you for approval of any of those items like that. So that's something that you'll see here as well. If there's any specific use permits, obviously that is a zoning change, a zoning request, and that would kick up to the city council as well for that as far as procedure. When we take a look at this, excuse me, when we take a look at the future land use plan, I'm sorry, before I do that, let me just kind of give you, this is what the applicant has provided for conceptually, what this could look like when it's built out. You have all of the elements that are associated with this. First of all, these are the current things that are sitting there. You've got a hotel, you've got the Toyota location here, Two Senoritas restaurant, of course, then you've got Atwood's here. But the rest of this is what you're anticipating of what this is going to look like once everything is complete on this site. And so it'll be a destination location for the city, probably a jewel, I would say, where you have some folks that are essentially going to come out here, provide some essential services and so forth. And so this is kind of the idea what that's going to look like. And this is the marina, talking about the boat slips that you have here, the docks, where folks can come in and just take a leisurely cruise down the river or the lake rather, and come in, mingle here, go to the restaurants, walk around and shop and so forth. And so that's really kind of what that's for. From a zoning standpoint, what we take a look at, obviously this is the future land use plan. We just want to make sure that it meets the future land use plan. And in this case, this is designated for mixed use, and that's exactly what this is, mixed use development. So it does meet the intent of the comprehensive plan. With that, we did send out public notice to all the folks within 200 feet inside the city limits. Public notice would go out to those folks. We'd sent out 32. Of the 32 notices that were sent out, we did receive one back in favor of the applicant's request. And with that being said, this does require a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to be forwarded to the City Council, where they will have the ultimate decision to whether to approve or deny the applicant's request. So with that, the applicant is here this evening to be able to answer any questions that you may have. I'm here to answer any questions as well. I believe they have a presentation that they want to present, to give to you and show you. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, so we'll open it to Mr. Anderson. Open public hearing.
We've got a video presentation that was done by our architect that it'll show you an overview and it's all set up on Google, so where you see the lake and the roads and all that, that's actually where the roads and everything will be, and so it'll give you a good idea of our conceptual plan. And really just, basically the goal of the plan development is to create a uniform development. And so instead of getting when you've got your standard zoning, you've got if it's commercial, there's a lot of different things that can fall in that. So you kind of get a big mix of different things side by side by side by side. And what this will do, it'll create a uniform look. It'll be when people drive through on I-30, they'll be able to see this from the interstate, and it'll be something that presents well for Mount Pleasant. Living here, I would say if you talk to everybody in town and say, hey, what does Mount Pleasant need? The three answers you'd get are grocery on the north side of town, someplace to go and relax, hang out with your families, and a steakhouse. And so, hopefully we can achieve that over there. Those are our goals too. And I don't know, y'all may have some questions. You got any specific questions? So our projected timeline is to start breaking ground about the end of this year. So we're about 6 or 7 months from getting everything approved, getting our engineering finished, and being able to start breaking ground. And what our goal is start breaking ground on streets and utilities, and at the very same time to start on a first phase of apartments. So those apartments are completed at the same time that the roads and utilities are finished. And with that, as far as bringing people into Mount Pleasant, everybody you talk to as far as businesses and different companies, the difficulty is getting employees because there's no place for them to live. So I would say growth in Mount Pleasant is at a large level bottlenecked by the lack of supply of housing. And so I know Diamond C was at City Council probably about 6 weeks, 2 months ago, and they asked them, I said, how many employees you got now? And they said 850, and they said, what is your expected growth? And they said, over the next 36 months, we expect to grow to 2,400. And so if you're going to experience that kind of growth, you're going to have somewhere for those people to live. And so right now I know that there's a 1-year waiting list over here on the apartment complex behind Walmart, the newer, nicer one. And so, but those are some of the things that we want to address, and we want to allow for growth in Mount Pleasant. But with that, rooftops also bring different restaurants, different places to shop. Living here in Mount Pleasant, I would say, the way I would describe it is Mount Pleasant is in retail drought. The last shopping center built in Mount Pleasant was in the 1980s, and it was where Berkshire's at. Before that, it was in the 70s. And so there's been a lot of growth in this area in the last 40 or 50 years. But, I've lived here my whole life, and the whole idea was, hey, we want to go shopping, and the next question was, when do you want to go to Longview? And so, I don't think it has to be like that. The last set of numbers I looked at showed over $1 billion in retail sale leakage, what that would mean is there's over $1 billion that's not being spent in our area. That's money that comes from our area. So there's $1 billion that people are going outside of our area to shop just because they don't have the choices, or they're not able to get those things bought here. And that's essential. And so I think we would like to address those things, and I think this development can do that. As far as timeline, I think 6 months to start, and I think 12 months, 18 months, somewhere in there, depending on weather and, whatever relates to that. But 12 to 18 months to complete and get substantial completion on streets and utilities from the time we start. So 18 to 24 months, probably be the build out on the infrastructure. We're not planning to phase that. We're planning to do that all at one time, so all the streets and utilities are in at the beginning. And as far as complete build out of the subdivision or the mixed use development, we think 5 to 7 years is what it'll take to complete the build out.
Does this require the city to issue any bonds to participate in the financing?
And so the answer is, so what we'll be doing, we'll be creating a public improvement district. And so how that works is, we determine the cost of all the public infrastructure, which would be streets and utilities. And then what we do is the city approves, they have zero liability, but what they approve is municipal bonds to be issued to me, the developer. And how that works is there's a tax assessment that's set just on my property. And how those bonds are paid back is through a tax assessment on my property. And so as we develop that and sell those off, there'll be an assessment that'll help to pay for roads and utilities within the development. So any funds that come from that are directly relatable to property within the project, doesn't affect anybody else in town, nobody else's tax rate. It just affects our stuff, and it goes back to benefit our stuff, but it's public infrastructure that's given to the city.
Okay, and the liability then is not shared by the citizens of Mount Pleasant?
That's correct. So how it works essentially is, so right now on your taxes, you basically have 5 taxing entities, which would be college, the school, hospital, the city, and the county. And so just on the property within this development, you would have a 6th taxing entity, and it would only be attached to the property in this development that relates to these roads and utilities.
In the event of a failure, who's liable?
So how it's paid with your property taxes every year. And so whoever owns that property is liable for that bond assessment. And so it would be it's collected just like property taxes. It goes through the appraisal district, and if you don't pay that, it's just the same as not paying your property taxes. So the likelihood of somebody not paying that bond assessment, compared to, it would just be like somebody not paying their property taxes. And so basically everybody, if they're making a house payment, if they're doing all that, property taxes are escrowed. It's just really part of the payment. That's how it works.
Well, I would be interested in knowing more about the liability. I've never seen a taxing authority that if you issued bonds or signed a note at the bank or participated in a note, somebody's ultimately liable. And if a property owner's liable and the property owner then becomes upside down, I just want to make sure the citizens of Mount Pleasant are not financing a private development.
I can tell you 100% the citizens of Mount Pleasant are not liable and not financing the development. There's no question there. And like I say, it's just essentially it's paying your property taxes. It's part of your tax bill every year, and that's how it's paid, and it's paid by the person that owns that property. And really, this is how the mindset of that goes. And so, you got somebody looking to buy a house, and they're saying, okay, we can afford whatever the number is. We'll just use a number, $2,000 a month. And so for $2,000 a month, what can we get? And so they can get the choices, and this is just a random, some numbers. These might not be 100% accurate, but, one choice may be you can get a 1,500 square foot house with 5 acres out in the county. And the next one may be you can get a 1,800 square foot house on a 1/6 acre lot in town. Or the next one, maybe you can get a 1,600 square foot house in this development. And so, there's people that are going to see the benefit to every, it's not, everybody's preference is different. So one guy, 5 acres means a lot to him, but the next guy's not going to want to mow 5 acres. And then one guy, he'd probably rather pay a little extra tax liability than have to have more square footage when it's only him and his wife. Why does he want a bigger house, more to air conditioning, more to maintain, whatever? And so that's really how it works out, is people decide what they want to spend, and they look at the pros and cons, and yes, this tax liability on that piece of property will be a small extra expense, but at the same time, is that person, do they see the advantages to having the lake view, not having to spend, you know, twice as much money for a lake lot on Bob Sandlin with the house? And so, you know, it's just pros and cons, and that's really how it works in the marketing of it. It's just what people want and what appeals to them.
Okay, I know that none of us has a crystal ball, but how long do you anticipate it taking for the city being relieved of its liability of the bond issues? I mean, how long will it be? Well, it's gonna be paid back by somebody. A bonding company does not issue bonds that are free. Doesn't happen. So at what point do you anticipate the city being relieved of that liability?
The city has zero liability from day one. They never have any liability. That's what I'm telling you. 100%, the city has zero liability. All they have to do is say, hey, we like this project and we would like to see this. And so we're willing to basically say, yeah, we like the deal. And that's it. All you need is a city approval from the city council that they like the development, but there's zero liability. There's never any liability to the city, ever. 0% liability. The bonds are paid back, but they're paid back from the property owner in the property tax statement annually with the property taxes. That's how they're paid back.
Okay, it's been my understanding that bonds are issued over a period of time, and this potentially has no end to it. The sale of this property could go on for 50 years, and those bonds are gonna be drawing interest. I mean, there's something about this that puzzles me.
Okay, so the bonds, when they're issued, there is a time. And the time has not been set yet because the bonds have not been set yet. But typically, it would be a 30-year bond. And so how that works is in a public improvement district, it's a set amount set by each, it's set prior to bond funding, and it's set on each lot. And so I don't know what the number is, but let's make up a number. And let's say it's $10,000 on a residential lot. And so it's a fixed amount. It's agreed to prior to bonds being issued. It's paid back with a property tax. It does, and it starts from the day bonds are issued. And how that works is for the first 24 months, the bond payments are escrowed. And so on year 3, what happens is whoever owns that property, whether it be me or it's sold and somebody else owns it, that's a person that starts paying that along with the property taxes each year. And then if a person buys a house and they say, hey, I don't really want to pay the bond assessment on this house, I'm paying cash for my house, I want to keep my expenses as low as possible, they can write a check on their lot and just pay the principal off, and it's just paid off.
Well, we will see. I wish you luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If you got any more questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But, you know, it's fixed, starts from the day they're issued, and then it's just paid off just like a fixed amount with a fixed rate. And the reason why it's done that way is basically because it's a financing tool that allows for a lower interest rate. And there's some other benefits to it because bonds are cheaper than standard financing.
I got a question. What do you foresee the rentals in those apartments? You mentioned that you're gonna get the streets and maybe get some infrastructure on apartments. What would be the average rental?
To be honest with you, I don't have those numbers with me, but right.
Anybody else got any questions? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson.
And one more note, just to add that as far as, you know, the liability goes, how that's set up is the property owner, which is me, has to go to city council and apply for a public improvement district to be set up on their property. And so the only person that could approve or request that to be levied on their property is the property owner, which would be us. And so that's what we're doing essentially, is we're requesting the city to create what they call a public improvement district, which only includes the boundary of the property that we own. And so as far as liability goes, it's limited to us.
Are you gonna have a HOA out there, or?
We'll have an HOA with an amenity center out there for people, to enjoy as well.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. You can come up. Yeah, this is a public hearing. Okay, you have to come to the podium and.
Hi, my name is Betty Stagg, and I live at 1712 Rotan Road, which is right in the middle of where he's wanting to build. First question, are the apartments government housing funded?
No.
Second question, the taxes he's talking about paying for the bonds, will my taxes go up for that? Even though I'm paying taxes now on my house and my property. Since it's in the middle of all of this, will my taxes go up when he's to pay those bonds?
I'm Galen Cameron, and I live at 1718 Rotan Road. Lived over there about 30 years. Lived in Mount Pleasant all my life. We owned a home, and we bought the lot at the end of the road. I guess because I'm a hermit for privacy as much as anything, but right past that is city property. And I thought, well, this being city property, it'll never be sold. So this, it's a nice place to live. We sit out and watch the animals out there. But from what I understand, the city is planning on selling that to Mr. Anderson. And the reason that they can sell it to him is because he would have to have low or medium income housing, if I'm not mistaken. Otherwise, he'd have to put it out for bid. There's about 110 acres that the city owns. It's mature pine and hardwood trees. There's coyotes, foxes, eagles, all kinds of songbirds. It would be a wonderful place for the city to develop. They already own it. They've been lucky by having some land donated, more or less, from Pilgrims for Heritage Park, and I think from PXU for the other part. We already own this. All the way around Tankersley Lake, on the shoreline, it belongs to the city. There's a reason for that. Tankersley Lake is part of the city water supply for Mount Pleasant. It's the emergency supply. Where that video shows that that land is flat as a pool table, it's not. Right at our land, it drops off. My concern is silt into the lake and pollution from all the cars that's going to be parked down in there if that's not preserved right in there. When they built Atwoods, they didn't maintain the silt fences, and a lot of silt washed through there. Right now, Creative Destinations Development, the land that I believe Mr. Anderson owns, there's gullies this deep where the water has washed away the dirt because they left that bare. It's going right in Tankersley, silting it in, destroying the water supply of Mount Pleasant. One thing I would mention is, I don't see how a marina would ever make it on a little small lake like that, plus the danger of pollutants as well. When I bought that lot, I looked at a deed that I don't know where it is now, and haven't had time to look for it. It's probably on record. All the land where the Creative Destinations is, where Atwoods is, where the hotel is, La Quinta Inn, all of that had a deed exemption. Only single family homes were to be built there. That included the land across 271 where Lowe's is. Mr. Roberts owned all that land, and he put a single family exemption on that land. I don't know if it's still in effect, but it was on the original deed. Also, there may be several ways to get out of that, but it's in a corner. You got one street in, which is Tankersley Road, and 271 is the other one. Tankersley Road, where it hits 271, a lot of times you can't even get out on 271 because traffic is backed up from the red light at the interstate. So traffic is a big problem there. And I think retail, I could kind of see that, or single family, but if you're gonna pack 1,200 families in that little corner, it's gonna be a disaster. And I'm no expert on any of this stuff, but if you have a bond and a extra taxing entity, it's gonna be based on the value of that property. All these businesses that he's talking about may or may not be there. That's not been determined yet. He didn't name any names of anybody that was actually buying land and putting a business in, because he doesn't own all that land, according to what I can tell. His land, that Creative Destinations, a couple weeks ago, it was valued at over $2.3 million. I think it's less than $1 million this week, but he was paying taxes on $5,600 ag use. So if that stuff is not on that property, to value it up high enough to pay those bonds, I don't see how it could pay for it. I guess that's about all I got to say, but I just don't think it's a good idea to do this here when you just got through denying somebody else out on the Harts Bluff Road the same opportunity to build apartments. And there's also apartments coming in at Northridge, a bunch of them. So anyway, that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak during the public hearing here? Okay. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Okay. Do I hear a motion to change the zoning to what was presented to us tonight? Multi. You? Do I hear a motion not to accept the zoning change?
Yes, I make a motion not to accept the zoning change.
Do I hear a second? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the zoning change?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Okay, the zoning. Okay. All right, well, let's hear Mr. Gonzalez's report.
Okay, so thank you so much. And just want to put out that on Friday is June 16th, so that's the third annual Juneteenth Family Festival. That'll start at 11 o'clock in the morning, and it'll go to about 6:30, so we invite you out. It'll be at Oaklawn Park, city-sponsored event. And also just let you know to plan for July 11th. Looks like we probably have a zoning case and probably a couple of plats that'll come in for your review at that time. So with that, that's all I have, not unless y'all have any other questions for me.
No, sir, thank you. Hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned.